Today, we are making tongue drums. This one easily created using just a 1x8x8 piece of pine. Only takes your drill, a miter saw, and your jigsaw. This one, a little bit more professional, requires a few extra tools. I'll also show you how to build a few rubber mallets so that you can play your new musical instrument, you Lucifer you. And I'll show you how to tune them so that you can play whatever song your little heart desires. I have free downloadable plans on the website so that you could easily make this music machine. The type of wood also plays a large part in the sound of your tongue drum as well. I'm going to just read these off to you because I don't want to take time to memorize them, and I'm probably going to butcher one or two of the pronunciations. Canary wood, shidua, mahogany, lipus, padauk, chocolate cedar, or purple heart work best. Play around with the different lengths and shapes of the tongues and also different wood types. Everything will affect the sound of your tongue drum. Today I am using 2 different types of wood to build 2 different tongue drums, which will be 2 different sizes and 2 different thicknesses of material. Whoa, these drums will be completely different. And this one is just made with a 1x8x8 piece of pine. Basic construction, I'm going to use a miter saw to chop it down, and then obviously a drill bit, your drill, and a jigsaw to cut these out. There's other tools involved. And then this guy, a little bit more intermediate, using just, a little bit of black walnut, using some cherry just to accent. I don't want this in the tongues, but I'm going to build one that's a little bit more fancy. Makes my thumbnails look cooler in the video, not these. Cut off the rough end of your board. Ace Hardware keeps these outside, so it has a thick, hard protective paste on the end of it. I'll flip the board around one more time since my miter saw is within inches of my wall. And yes, I'm being dramatic. Cut your 1x8x8 to 15 inches 4 times. If you want to be extra fancy, cut your boards to 15 1/4 of an inch. Tape them together and you'll have 4 freakishly perfect boards, all cut the same length. Cut 2 more pieces at 5 1/4 of an inch. I know I'm cutting them to 6. Just listen to the voice instructions. 5 1/4 of an inch. Now you may be scratching your head saying, Aaron, what the heck? Why do I have this much wood left? And it is because this is your oopsie board. So 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 6 plus 6 is only 72, but I had 96 inches to work with. And if you mess up drawing and doodling your tongues, you've got an extra piece of wood. I'm looking out for you guys. Or it's like a buy 5, get 1 free deal. You could build an extra one on you because you bought all the wood. Now, to get our tongues set up, again, print this bad boy out. And then find a board that does not have a lot of knots. Honestly, this piece of wood looks like it is the best option. This guy's got 4. This guy, he only has 1. Maybe him. This guy, 2. No. So this is the winner, apparently. I can only give you an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper because unless you guys have a printing press, you won't have an option to print poster size. So this is what we got. You can edit these as much as you want, as little as you want. What I do is I just find where it looks like they're kind of centered on these are centered in between my outside pieces. And I line it up at the end. This is very scientifical. And then I press these down like so. And now my board can run along here. So for these, I'm going to put them at the end. I don't actually have my poker stick. I'm just going to use this, I guess. So we're going to poke in these holes. Then we're going to come down to this end. And you're going to take a piece of wood, or if you got a long fancy ruler, this is not long enough. And I prefer to use a mechanical pencil. It gives me a smaller, thinner, more dead-on line than what you're going to get with a non-mechanical pencil. and you're going to draw these lines in. Just like so. Also, if you wanted to cut it to 11.5 inches long and just use the straight up template, go for it. And then you can just line it up kind of either near the center, or if you wanted these tongues to be longer than these, it's all up to you. You guys do you. All right, so then we're gonna just trace these circles. And once you trace these, you pull it off. There's your lines. Now that I've kind of played with it off camera, I prefer this method. So grab your square, you pop it on here, exactly lined up with where you had just rounded that corner. Again, I've erased all my lines. Line it up to give you a nice straight cut. Honestly, right there, you're done, but you do have to cut out the center section. Then I just take something that has a rounded edge, I put it on the side, and then I just round the edges that way. Now, it's not perfectly rounded, which is okay. If you look them up online, you'll see some of them aren't like this at all. I like mine all to match, but a lot of the drums, the cool looking ones, do not match. And you can doodle your lines on freehand if you wanted to. Make your own template. And there you go. That's how I get these little guys to look like that. And now comes the fun part. Minimally, you will need a jigsaw, drill, and a bit to drill out some holes. I am going to use a Forstner bit. These are Harbor Freight Forstner bits. I'm not even using my good set since this is the easy peasy build. Honestly, my favorite one. $6, you get an array of different sizes, and they work pretty good. The pilots are good. I've never sharpened them. They work all right. If you guys choose to use just a traditional this bit, drill bit, they can wander. You're going to get more tear out. Just pick up some of these little bits. Harbor Freight, order them online, probably pretty cheap. Big upgrade if you don't own any. Now, this is a 1/2 inch. This guy's only 3/8 because that's the biggest size I have in my little pack. But you need your Forstner bit set to be at least the size of your blade. I'm using a little bit thicker of a blade. It just tends to not give me much wander or go like this. So I prefer these little bit thicker blades to the thinner ones that come with this tool when you buy them. But a 1/2 inch is plenty of room. And what we will be doing is we're going to drill out these 8 holes right here. And that gives us a spot to put our drill and cut straight across. Just make sure when you're drilling out your holes, you're using a piece of scrap wood or even your workbench so you can drill into that, because otherwise, if you have it hanging off the side, you're going to get some blowout. Whoops. We'll go over the mallet here in a minute. If you're not tone deaf, you could kind of hear the difference between those. It is a little goosey, so just be careful. These are going to be very weak points that would be easy to snap this in half. When I was cutting it with the jigsaw, I ran into a spot and it hiccuped a little bit, and I got a little scared because I didn't want this to bust. That's what the oopsie board's for. The top of it looking pretty good. The bottom, like absolute garbage. So thank goodness this is the top. We are going to sand the top of this, just get these crevices cleaned up, get all these burrs out of here. I'm just putting it against this crevice. I'm not shoving a piece of sandpaper in there, and sanding them lightly. Looking too bad. A little bit of tear out. You really need to be careful with your jigsaw, because since these are going to be able to flap around when you're cutting with the jigsaw, this is going to be bouncing, and that's going to give you a little bit of tear out. If you hold it down in place as you're cutting, you'll have nice clean lines. For assembly, I'm going to apply glue to the sides and glue this guy in place. I'm not going to use any nails. I'm going to glue and clamp it. I'm sorry. But that's just what I want to do. I don't want to see nails. You're going to see them on the front, on the sides. You're going to see them on the top. I don't want that. So gluing these in place, this guy, he's going to get glued in place to be flush on the bottom, having a lip on the top. I added the lip. If you guys don't want it, make your sides a little longer. But this way, your mallets wouldn't be able to roll off if you had it, like on your lap or you're giving it to a kid. They can't lose these. Otherwise, you could always use this as a storage spot. And I've seen some cool ones where they have like an actual dedicated piece of wood that you slide the mallets into. Maybe we'll make that on the fancier one. We'll see here in a little bit. So I'm keeping the lip. There's no lip going for the bottom, so that should be an easy assembly. Tight Bond 3, just because Tight Bond 2, the lid is messed up. You don't need to have an exterior waterproof glue, but Tight Bond 1 or 2 will work fine. Apply our glue with end grain. I say this a lot. End grain, you want it to set up. It's like little straws. You want it to suck all that glue in. And then you're going to reapply some glue. Look at that, I already did it. And then you're going to apply more glue. So that way you have glue for that board. This is the bottom inside. This is the nice place. I did cut down these sides to 5 1/4. 5 1/4 for the sides instead of 6 inches because I did need to allow space for the bottom board, which now gives me just that little space of lip for the top board. So just like before, but without the mistakes, put in some glue, clamp it together. Moving on. To attach the sides, I just put the bottom into place. Again, it is not getting any glue. And then placing these just like so, lining it up on the bottom, taking it like that, flipping her onto her bottom, making sure these points are lined up for both, throwing a clamp on there. Wipe all your glue off, let it set up and dry. After everything is set up, take off your clamps, give it a nice sanding on the sides. And for the bottom, I was going to put in some screws, but look how tight this fits in here. Like almost too tight. Look at that. Hammer that down when you're done, because you still have to access the tongues on the inside in order to tune them. You can download a simple tuner on your phone and hit your note. Then underneath, you can remove material from the tongue near the end it's attached to in order to lower the note. Or you can remove material at the other end to raise the note. It also helps if you get some rubber feet or these little felt pads to put on the bottom of your drum so that the vibrations don't transfer from your drum into whatever it's sitting on. Sound is weird. You can either use your fingers you can use a wooden mallet, or you can use a rubber mallet. I didn't buy one of those, but you can make your own. Just pick up some bouncy balls. I grabbed these from a vending machine, which is actually harder to find than you think. In order to make a rubber mallet, all you need to do is just get a piece of dowel rod. You're going to get your rubber bouncy ball. Very carefully drill a hole in the bottom, not all the way through, just a good distance. And then you're going to glue that into place. That's the motto. Throwing back something to them something battles. And you've just learned your first song. It's exciting. Make your own mallets. These sound a lot better than these wooden ones. I don't even know why I own these. And all of the background music for this video is brought to you by yours truly. Let's make the other box. Follow the plans in order to rip down the black walnut and cherry to create this cool gradient effect. This only needs to be done for the side pieces. Glue the pieces in the correct order. And sure, you could wipe and clean up the glue when it's still wet, but I like to open a hibachi grill the next day and scrape it all off. I think it takes less time. Let your board set up overnight or a couple nights. I want to keep the top and bottom as one solid wood type. The top will be the black walnut and the bottom will be cherry. I'm leaving these at a manageable length. I'm planing down the sides and bottom to 5/8 of an inch. The top will be planed down to a 1/2 inch. Acoustically, I think this will sound better. Dial in your miter saw to 45 degrees. And as I was going, I wanted to cut in these little rabbits, right, so that I can hide what would have been the top board. I oopsied, I didn't have the right one. I even held it up against there and was like, yeah, that's it. Apparently not. So I pulled the wrong rabbit out of the hat, the router box. So this one was actually thicker, and it actually matched with this bottom board pretty well. So now the bottom is still the bottom. You'll be able to pull the bottom out to tune the top, because I want the top to be anchored into the box. And with this, to actually get it to cut out the bottom, I took the side, it's on the other side, cut it right on that glue line, made these so they were the same size. Might put, I don't know, like a little pull handle, maybe something on here. So that way this gets glued to the box, this gets glued to the top, and I'm able to pull this drawer in and out, again, to tune the top, which will be glued into place. And that's what I'm going to be working on right now. It was kind of a happy accident, because now I have reverse the boards. I was going to put the black walnut with the black walnut and the cherry with the cherry, and I'm glad it happened like this. I kind of like how the woods play. The bottom and the top, I'm not overly worried about. What I'm going to be doing is gluing up this, mainly just these 4 pieces, because again, this piece gets glued onto the top piece. So when you pull it out, you push it in, hopefully it matches up and looks nice. I am going to glue these in place. I'm just going to use some good old painter's tape, you know, the painter's tape method. Line these bad boys up. I need a lot of room for this. I like to test my joints before the big glue up, because I don't want that to happen. I don't want to have a bunch of glue everywhere and then find out something silly's happening, all right? So that's all right. All right. Again, tight bond 3, because I just need to clean the cap on my tight bond 2. Something's wrong with it. We have the box looking purty, has that tongue for the bottom to slide in so we can access the tops. That is important. This piece of wood, it is glued up back behind me. I got that all set up today, cut to size. This guy, the top, I measured and cut to size today. Probably didn't have it on film, but that's okay. And then I have drawn in how I want the tongues to look on the top of this board. So I want it to be a little bit more fancy than these guys, since we have some new tools. Welcome to the scroll saw. Look at that, people. It's a scroll saw. Does not fit on the flip carts. It's about 2 inches too big, so it might just live there. So to make this guy, I was going to show you as I did it, but you really can't see it because of the reflective lead, and I'm not going to use a Sharpie on it. So what I did to get him is this. First off, I had 6 3/4 inches tall, 19 3/4 inches wide. There's a definite 3/4 inch theme for this build. 3/4 of an inch border. I really don't need a border since it is sitting on the inside. It's not, being on the top. You don't have to avoid this section, but I did want this to have a little bit of stability, because if I cut my tongues too close to the edge, I had a chance of snapping, and I didn't want that to happen. So 3/4 of an inch border works out. You can make it thicker, you can make it a little thinner, be careful thinner, but that's what I did. Now this one, I didn't follow these plans. I wanted it to be a little more fancy, but also I wanted to experiment with the tones and how to make the tongues, and just kind of put a couple different features into this, just to kind of play around. It's a play thing, and it'll still turn out pretty cool in the end. So to start, I had put a 3/4 inch line, shocker, right there, and I drew my line straight. You can use one of these, pop it down, 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, draw your line. If you wanted to go like this, you could do that as well. Same with this, pop it on, 3/4 of an inch, use a straight edge. That's all you got to do. Now these set of tongues are a different size, so they're different thicknesses, different widths. They're all the same thickness, I guess, but widths. 3/4 of an inch for the first one. Second one I had made to be a 1 inch. Then I went to 1 1/4. Then I went to a 1 1/2. And then I went to a 2 inch. And they are all cut the same size. I did not do the round over. I'm actually doing this kind of funky little cut line in the tops of them to go like this. And this part is going to be removed. That gives me the ability to put in the blade to go this direction. And then also there's a little bit of space up here where it goes straight for me to go this direction to come down to here, and so on and so forth until I get to the end. Then I added in a 3/4 inch spot, because it is going to mimic this line going around the outside. So this is one solid piece. Well, it's all one solid piece. And then I kind of followed the same as this as in placement, but I added one to the bottom, and I had 6 inches. So I had 6 1/4 inch. So I ignored this extra 1/4 inch at the top. So that is actually going to be a 1 inch thick piece at the top. And then I was able to get 4 different spots. 1, 2, 3. Yes, so 3 lines gives me 4 tongues for this. One of them goes the entire distance, and I think that would be fun just to see what like a 12-inch tongue is going to sound like. And then I just divvied them up. I did put these lines going separate directions because I want it to look kind of fancy. And then this entire thing is going to get removed on the inside. It's about a 1/4 inch wide. Again, if I wanted to drill into that to get my blade into the material, that is what I'm doing. If you're just using a jigsaw, these might have to be a little bit wider, just to be a 1/2 inch like we had cut for the first box. Otherwise, these I can get away with a 1/4 inch because that blade is a lot thinner. So I'm going to play with the new scroll saw and get her cut out. Again, I drilled some holes into the top, and using the new scroll saw, I cut on the lines. Probably should have ran a few test pieces through here first. Very tedious sanding for this one. I missed the thicker blade from the jigsaw. Measure for some magnets to hold the bottom in place. That's the motto. I don't know. This one actually does not sound as good as this one. And I think I know why. So when I built this box, I had made it so this top board is actually glued to every piece on the top. This piece is glued inside of these. So when you hit this note, the vibration travels through the box. This one, it doesn't, because it hits the sides and it reverberates. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. It just doesn't sound as good. And that's sad. But by making these, it's really experimental. By making these different widths, they're about the same note. So whether you're going from a 3/4 inch or a 2 inch tongue, I think it's all up to you. Because really, for tuning, it's your thickness and length is what matters more so than I think the width of the tongue. So make your tongues as wide or as narrow as you wish. Glue it up like this box. I tried to make it a little more fancy. Turns out tongue drums don't like that, but it might just need a little more tuning too, but that note sounds amazing.